Welcome to Magic Hour with Paul Chappell. We are reviewing The Suicide Squad, starring Idris Elba. He finally got a movie worthy of his talents. I'm so happy for him. Harley Quinn is played by, of course, Margot Robbie, who's had her own movie before this one. She also was in the other Suicide Squad, which was terrible. I'm happy to say that I feel like, she finally got her due as well. Because if you've watched this channel for any time, you know I did not like Birds of Prey or whatever they call the movie, Emancipation of Harley Quinn. Okay, this movie was a lot better than the last one, and I'm going to have to compare it to the last one because it was just so bad. I felt like somebody sat down, James Gunn, obviously, he sat down, looked at the old movie, and saw every problem that movie had, and he decided to rectify that with this movie. Of course, the first thing he did was make it rated R. It needed to be rated R. It's just that type of movie. You're doing a movie about villains. It probably needs to be rated R. I mean, Deadpool was rated R, and it's in that same. It kind of felt like it had that same type of tone. So I think they got the tone right. I think the pacing was a lot better in this movie. I'm not even going to go into the plot too much. I'll talk a little bit about it, but the plot really isn't important. If you've seen the first movie, it's pretty much the same plot. These villains are in jail, and the old movie gave every criminal, except for the guy they eventually killed, they gave every criminal a backstory, and the movie, it took an hour before we actually got into the story. I'm happy to say that they dispensed with all those bios and whatnot. They went right into the story. They went right into the action. And one of the things that they did very early on was they killed more than one of the villains of the Suicide Squad. In fact, they killed one of the people that was in the last movie and reappeared in this movie. In fact, I was kind of concerned, that no one was safe. I went into this movie thinking that Harley Quinn was going to be okay, but I didn't know the way they killed off some of the characters in the beginning. And it made me anticipate it a whole lot more because you did not know who was going to die. Okay, so he got a lot of things right. The movie was very funny, of course. A lot funnier than the last movie. Again, it's in that same tone as Deadpool. So I think the comedy was more important than the action, although the action was not bad at all. But it was a funny movie. I kind of felt bad that I didn't see it in the theater because there were some moments in the movie I just know for a fact that those scenes were created to elicit response in a packed theater. And if you've already seen it, you probably know what I'm talking about. There's a scene where John Cena, who I don't like, we'll get into that later, he comes out in his tighty whities, and it was very funny. So stuff like that obviously would have played better in a theater than watching it at home like I did, but I'm not in theaters right now. I'm not going back to theaters until this second COVID thing is over with. So hopefully we will get past the virus at some point in the future. Okay, so I don't have a lot of complaint about this movie, but I do have some nitpicky things. And first of all, let me just reiterate, I hate John Cena. I just don't like his face. He looks like a cartoon. I don't think he can act. There's so many things I don't like about him. It didn't really distract from the movie too much. It kind of annoyed me, though, that the end credit scene was all about him. And, of course, you probably already know he's going to have a series on HBO Max. I would have liked to have seen a series with Idris Elba's character, Bloodsport. He seemed a lot more interesting. Of course, if you know anything about that character from the comic books, he actually shoots Superman with a kryptonite bullet, and they actually mentioned that in this movie. I thought that was awesome, but I would so much want to see a movie or series about Bloodsport before Peacemaker. But, you know, Idris Elba has a bigger career. He's more of a name. So I'm sure they probably even asked him and he probably turned them down. So let's go back to the plot a little bit. The plot is basically, as I've already said, these villains, supervillains, so-called supervillains, are chosen to go on these secret missions. In return, they will get 10 years off their prison sentence. If they cooperate, they each have a bomb inserted in their necks. And so if they try to escape, they get blown up. It's basically the Dirty Dozen. I saw that growing up. Loved those movies. But yeah, that's basically the plot. In this movie, a Latin American country has been overthrown. The family that ruled it was overthrown by some kind of dictator. I mean, it was basically a cookie cutter James Bond plot. The problem with this general and this other guy overthrowing this country is that there was a secret project that this country was working on in cooperation with America. It's a weapon of mass destruction that Amanda Waller wants destroyed because they were working on this weapon of mass destruction, but they're not allies with the United States. So Amanda Waller wants Task Force X or the Suicide Squad to go in and destroy this super weapon. So that's the basic plot. Like I said, it was cookie cutter, James Bond stuff, very thin. But it is obvious watching this movie that Bloodsport himself was written for Will Smith. In fact, I've already read something about this. They actually wrote the movie for Deadshot because the character has the same arc as Deadshot. That is, Bloodsport has the same arc as Deadshot. He has a daughter in the movie. As far as I know, Bloodsport doesn't have a daughter in the comics. His daughter is used against him because she has stolen something, and Amanda Waller threatens to send her to prison, to adult prison, if Bloodsport doesn't help her with this mission. So that character arc was so specific, and so like Deadshot's arc in the last movie that I just knew that they wrote that for Will Smith. They changed it at the last minute because for whatever reason Will Smith didn't want to do it, which I thought was a good thing because I just don't think Will Smith should play bad guys. I just don't buy him as a bad guy. Idris Elba, though, does it very well. I mean, he played a bad guy in The Wire, so he does that very well. But if there's a main character in this story, and that's kind of fuzzy about who the main focus is. Part of the movie they follow Harley Quinn, and part of the movie they follow Bloodsport. So it was kind of switching back between those two, along with a couple other people. But for the most part, it was Bloodsport and Harley Quinn. Although they didn't even give Harley Quinn any kind of bio, which I just assumed they did because she got one so prominently in the last movie. So even though this movie was kind of a reboot of Suicide Squad, it was also a carryover because, you know, we got the same actors, most of the same characters. You know, you got people like Boomerang, Captain Boomerang appearing in the movie. So it's not a complete reboot. Like I said, it's a soft reboot. And the final thing I would say is King Shark was so silly and so ridiculous. I don't think somebody as intelligent as Amanda Waller would have sent him on his mission. Now, I understand why they had him on this mission. He was funny. He was there for comic relief. He was played by Sylvester Stallone, interestingly enough. I didn't even realize that until I looked up the roster a few minutes ago. But yeah, that was Sylvester Stallone. If you're on a mission where you're infiltrating a hostile country and you need stealth, you don't want to bring somebody like King Shark. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But overall, I didn't have A lot of issues with this movie. It was very entertaining. I actually cared about the character. There was a character called the Rat Catcher 2, which is actually another. I keep saying another character from the comics, but I felt like some of these villains were created just for this movie because so many villains are killed in it. But there was a Rat Catcher character, Rat Catcher 2. There's a Rat Catcher villain in the comic, another Batman villain, but this is Ratcatcher's daughter, and she was kind of the heart of the movie. I really liked the actress that played her, Daniela Melchior, I think is how you pronounce it, but she was great. So there was a lot to like about this movie. The pacing was better. They fixed a lot of problems that we had in the last movie. I would give this movie almost a 5. I'm not going to quite give it a 5 because, like I said, I did have a few problems with it. I would give it a 4.5. And I want to reiterate, movie is a hard R. It is not for kids. Now, I know the last movie was like PG-13 or whatever it was. This movie has some gruesome scenes in it. So if you want to take your young kids, I would not recommend it. But other than that, it's a very enjoyable movie. Another solid effort by James Gunn. I can't wait for Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which should be coming out in the near future. But yeah, that's all I got for today. I'd like to thank my subscribers and encourage you. Hit that subscribe button. Let me know if I got this review right. Do you have any complaints about it? Let me know in the comments. And until next time, I will see you when I see you. Thanks for watching.